Hey everyone, Duke here, and today I am making the ultimate starter guide for Destiny 2. Whether you are a new or returning player, or even someone who has played since the beginning, my goal is to have something for everyone in this guide. I will be breaking this video up into 7 big sections, with a number of subsections as well. I will be talking about Guardian classes, gear leveling, farming weapons, materials, farming armor, armor stats, and finally, armor mods. Each of these sections will be timestamped in the description, as well as on screen right now, so if there are certain sections you are most interested in, please feel free to skip around to each specific topic. Starting off with the first thing every Destiny player needs to know about, classes and picking your class. There are 3 classes in Destiny: Warlocks, Titans, and Hunters. The first question that everyone asks: what class should I play? There is no one correct answer to this question, as every class has strengths and they are all good in their own ways and have multiple different ways to play them through each unique subclass. In just a bit, I'll be going over a few of my favorite subclasses for each class. I will say that if you pick one class and realize that you would rather play a different one later, that is totally fine. If Destiny is a game you end up playing for the long term, you will most likely end up creating one of each class, as you can see here, at some point anyway, so just think of it as getting ahead of the curve if you end up changing which class you prefer to focus on to start. Each class has 4 subclass types: Arc, Solar, Void, and Stasis. For each subclass other than Stasis, there are 3 different subclass trees you can choose from that each have unique abilities. Every Arc, Void, and Solar subclass is going to look pretty much exactly like this, with your class abilities having 2 options over here. You're going to have 3 potential jumps, you're going to have 3 potential grenades, and then you're going to have 3 trees on the right side. The trees on the right side here you can only pick as a group. You can't just pick one of the 4 in one section and then one of the 4 in a different section. This is supposed to be changing though as of Witch Queen, at least for Void subclasses, as they are going to make them much more similar to Stasis, which we will be checking out in a little bit. For Warlocks, every single subclass is going to have 2 rifts, one being Healing Rift, with the other being Empowering Rift. Basically, Healing Rift allows you to heal when you stand inside your rift, Empowering Rift gives you more damage when standing inside your rift. For those looking which one you should use to start off with, I would say unless you have a specific situation where you want to use Empowering Rift, Healing Rift is going to be your option for a lot of situations. Going over a couple of my favorite subclasses for Warlocks, for the middle tree, Attunement of Control, we have Chaos Reach, which is going to be your super, which basically turns it into a big beam of doom. We have Ball Lightning, which allows you to fire an arc projectile with your melee that travels forward and releases a perpendicular bolt of lightning. We have Pulse Wave, which means that being critically wounded triggers an energy wave that boosts yours and allies' speed. And Ionic Trace, which defeating enemies has a chance to create Ionic Traces. Collecting Ionic Traces grants energy to all of your abilities. Next we have Middle Tree Solar, Attunement of Grace, with Well of Radiance, which turns your super into a well that basically gives you damage and gives you healing. This is going to be something that you will see a lot of people using in any team-based activities, especially raids. It's a great super for any sort of teamwork. We have Guiding Flame as well, which strikes an enemy with this melee ability to inflict burn damage and empowering yourself and nearby allies. Basically increases your damage. Note that this does not stack with Well of Radiance, so you can't be in a Well of Radiance getting the damage buff from this and punch something and get a damage buff from this as well. You can do one, or you can do the other. You can do them separately, but you cannot do them together. We have Benevolent Dawn, which healing or empowering allies regenerates your grenade, melee, and rift energy. And finally, we have Divine Protection, which allows you to turn your grenade into a basically healing grenade that you can throw either on the ground or directly at somebody. It will stay there for a while, multiple people can pick it up, gives them an overshield, gives them healing. And finally, we have Bottom Tree Void, Attunement of Hunger, starting with Devour. Kills with this melee ability fully regenerate your health, and for a short time afterward, kills restore additional health. Next we have Feed the Void. Consuming your grenade allows you to regenerate your health and grants this previous Devour effect. Next we have Vortex, where Nova Bomb creates a singularity which continually damage enemies trapped inside, and kills with Nova Bomb again grant the Devour effect. And finally, Insatiable, when the Devour effect is active, killing enemies extends its duration and recharges your grenade. This is a subclass that is very good at kind of building off of each other. And finally, we have Stasis. As you can see, Stasis definitely does not look the same as the other three subclasses. If you look a little deeper though, we still have Healing Rift and Empowering Rift. We still have Burst Glide, Strafe Glide, and Balance Glide, so same jumps. We still have a melee ability, which you can't get any more than one melee ability currently. For Stasis Warlocks, that is Penumbral Blast, which basically just allows a little short range melee that can freeze targets if you hit them. And then, again, we have three types of grenades. These are different grenades, though. We have Duskfield Grenade, Glacier Grenade, and Cold Snap Grenade. Basically, Duskfield is a slowing, and eventually freezing little dome grenade. We have Glacial Grenade that just throws out a literal glacier. And Cold Snap Grenade is a bit of a tracking grenade that can track and freeze targets if they hit him. Note that there's also aspects for all Stasis subclasses. For Warlocks, I feel like the two best options in almost all scenarios are going to be Ice Flare Bolts and Bleak Watcher. Ice Flare Bolts allow you to shatter a frozen target, which will then spawn Seekers that track and freeze other nearby targets. Basically, you just have a chain of freeze going all over the place. This does have a cooldown eventually, but really, really good. And then Bleak Watcher, which we've gotten a little bit more recently. It's been around for a while now, but it didn't come out originally with Stasis, but it's here now. And this will allow you to press and hold the grenade button to convert your grenade into a Stasis turret, which fires slowing projectiles at nearby targets. The very, 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 very first time I used this, I was like, wow, it does like 2 damage, literally. Maybe not even. Like, this sucks. Like, it doesn't do damage. Like, this is not going to be something that's going to go kill things for you. But the fact that this lasts as long as it does, the fact that it just keeps tracking onto things, and freeze is like really, really, really strong, and it can freeze a lot of different things, and it can chain with Ice Flare Bolts. It's insane. Really, really, really good aspect. Turns this subclass from decent to outstanding in PvE, especially like endgame type PvE. Great, 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 great aspect right here. As for fragments, there's like 70 million of them. Not really, there's like, I don't know, 15-ish maybe. I'm not going to go over all of them. This video's already going to probably be quite long, so I'm just going to try to go over the couple that I use, at least for this specific subclass. So I use Whisper of Torment, which allows for grenade energy each time I take damage from targets. I often take damage from targets. I get more grenade energy. The turret I was just talking about, that's a big pog. We have Whisper of Hedrons, which dramatically increases weapon stability, aim assist, mobility, resilience, and recovery after freezing a target with stasis. Again, that turret uptime is insane. You're going to constantly be freezing target with stasis. You're going to get this pretty much permanent uptime. Next we have Whisper of Refraction. Defeating slowed or frozen targets grants you class ability energy. I like Rifts. I like being able to heal. More class ability energy when I'm defeating these slowed or frozen targets by the turret. Awesome. And finally we have Whisper of Fissures, which increases the damage and size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. Again, a lot of things are going to be frozen. I defeat it. Boom, bigger explosion. I do also want to mention one more fragment, Whisper of Durance, where slows from your abilities last longer, and for those abilities that linger, their duration will also increase. This is awesome, amazing for the turret. I will also use this fragment quite frequently. This increases your turret's duration to, I believe, a full 30 seconds, which is, again, just wild, especially if you have super high discipline on your Stasis Warlock build. You can basically have permanent uptime on turrets. You can potentially even have multiple turrets up at the same time, especially if you start combining this with some mods, but even just this baseline, super duper good. My favorite subclass for Titans is going to be the Striker subclass, the Arc subclass on Middle Tree, which is going to give you Thunder Crash on your super, which allows you to just turn your super into one big slam, basically. You can go flying through the air, hit a target from halfway, almost fully across the map, and just do insane damage to one target. If you want to do even more insane damage to said target, you can compare and combine this with Cuirass of the Falling Star, which is going to be a chess piece exotic for Titans. This will, as shown here, greatly increase your Thunder Crash impact damage and gain an overshield that lasts longer the further you travel before striking a target. As you are literally yeeting yourself into danger while doing this, having that overshield is super helpful. When it says greatly increasing your damage, they mean it. It is a significant, big damage boost. This is a awesome chess piece to compare and put in with your Middle Tree Thunder Crash, and I will show you guys later how to get this. Short version is going to be Lost Sectors. Another great subclass for Titans is going to be the Sentinel Top Tree subclass. The reason I really enjoy this subclass is going to be for its Word of Dawn effect, which basically allows you to create a big bubble. What this bubble does is it's actually going to be the biggest weapon damage buff in the game, gives you a 35% weapon damage buff whenever you and your teammates go through it. You can't shoot through it, you can't shoot out of it, but if you dip into the bubble and then come out the bubble, you have 15 seconds of 35% bonus damage, bigger buff than anything else, bigger buff than Well of Radiance, although Well of Radiance also allows you to shoot from it and while it's healing you, but huge buff here. Great subclass to use, especially in team-based and especially in raid-based content, which I love. My favorite subclass for Hunters is going to be the Night Stalker subclass, specifically with the super Shadow Shot, which allows your tether to basically slow, weaken, and suppress your enemies for both yourself and your allies. Note that the weakening effect here is actually a 30% damage debuff, or you can look at it as a 30% damage buff for your own team. So this is going to be very useful, again, in any sort of team-based content, or where you really want to take down enemies or bosses specifically quicker or quickly. I like to run this subclass on the top tree, which is Way of the Trapper, for two reasons. A, you have Deadfall, which basically allows the tether to just be a single shot tether. You get it off, it tethers, it gives you that debuff that I was talking about, it chains to all nearby enemies, all that damage can be shared between any enemies that are tethered. Super duper great, super duper awesome. And the second part that I very much like about this subclass, and I think a lot of you guys will like about this subclass, is that dodging, which is your class ability, allows you to vanish from sight for a short time. It turns you invisible for a short time. It's going to be very helpful for survival. Great perk here. One other thing I will note about Hunters specifically is their jumps are quite a bit different than Titans or Warlocks. Again, Titans and Warlocks have decent enough differences in their jumps. You will notice the difference when you're using them, but Hunters have a very different type of jump. It's much more of a like realistic-ish jump, kind of. We'll explain why kind of here in a second, but basically you get two jumps normally as a Hunter, so you can go, you can kind of jump, arc yourself, and then do like a second jump mid-air, so that's, obviously that part's not realistic, but it's a very kind of mathematical, if you will, jump. We have high jump, which allows that second jump to reach greater heights. You have strafe jump, which allows that second jump to have better directional control, so you can go like kind of go right and then go left, etc. And then you have triple jump, which instead just gives you a third jump. Honestly, I would say a lot of the reason a lot of people like Hunters is going to be for this different type of jump mode. I think a lot of people, especially early on, struggle with the Warlock jumps and or Titan jumps. I think the Hunter jump is more intuitive, so I think that that can be a lot more helpful for newer players, because movement feels good. Like if you can move correctly throughout the world, if you can jump to places you need to jump to and not just fall off the map, like that's gonna be kind of sus. People aren't gonna like that. So I think this is what draws people, at least somewhat. There's a lot of reasons that people like to play Hunter or like to play different subclasses, but I think the jump is going to be something that, if that's something, maybe you start with Warlock or start with Titan and you're really struggling with the jump, think about Hunter. Hunter's got a little bit of a different jump there that might be a little bit more intuitive for you. Next, we need to talk about one of the most asked about and important topics in Destiny, leveling. There are actually 3 levels that you're going to see on your character screen. First is going to be the big yellow number. That is going to be your total level. That is what matters for most things. To be fair, the artifact level, which we'll talk about in a second, actually does not count in Trials or Iron Banner, so some PvP modes, but big yellow number, that's going to be your total power. The white number you see here that says gear next to it, that is going to be your gear score, which is the average of your 8 gear pieces. So you have 3 weapons on the left side here. For me, these are all 1330 currently. You have 5 armor pieces on the right side. Again, these are all 1330. So if I average out all things that are 1330, my gear score is indeed 1330. The final level you see here is going to be in blue, and it is your bonus level, which is attached to your artifact. Your artifact is this bottom left gear piece, and if you look a little bit closer in here, you're going to have some mods here that we're going to talk about briefly later, as well as on the bottom right, you can see that it has artifact unlocks, as well as your power bonus, and you can also see how far away you are from the next power bonus here. You can also see that actually from this screen right off the bat on the bottom. This is just going to be straight from XP. You can get XP from just killing anything in the game, completing anything in the game. There are going to be two main ways to get XP though, and that's going to be through bounties and weekly challenges. I'd recommend always picking up bounties whenever you're going to do an activity. So if you're going to, let's say, do strikes, you can go to the tower, and over here you're going to see that Zavala even has a challenge to do bounties from him. So if you go to the tower, talk to Zavala, you can buy bounties from him, and you'll XP from the bounties. If you complete 8 of them, you'll get a powerful gear, you'll get Bright Dust, and actually completing this challenge gives you more XP as well. The second thing I mentioned is also on your quest screen. It's going to be at the top here, seasonal challenges. Each week that the season goes on, for the first 10 weeks, you will get more and more seasonal challenges. They just ask you to do all sorts of different things, such as completing the storyline, or doing certain seasonal activity-related activities, or potentially playing a certain mode in Crucible, or playing different challenges, or just getting kills in a certain area. All sorts of different challenges. You can do all of them across different weeks. If you miss a week, for example, right now I'm missing one from week 5, even though it's currently week 6, you can still go back and do them. Note that for the blue stat, the bonus stat here, there is actually no cap. Every level that you get, you're going to require even more XP than the last level, but other than that, you could potentially go to infinity if you really wanted to. Obviously, I don't think anyone's going to infinity, but there is no cap to your artifact bonus level for any season. You do lose it at the end of a season and when the new season starts, but there is no cap to it. There are, however, a number of caps on your gear score. To start though, your first cap is going to be the soft cap, which is going to be, at least currently, at 1270 gear score. This goes up pretty much every season. Whenever the total gear score and the pinnacle cap gear score goes up, the soft cap also goes up, but right now that's going to be 1270. That 1270 gear score is going to be where you can get to by doing anything in the game. You could go wherever you want. You open the director, you go to the EDZ, you kill some random enemies, you go to the Cosmodrome, whatever. You go do some strikes, you go do some gambit. It doesn't matter. You can get to 1270 doing literally anything. You don't have to think about anything else. However, once you get to 1270, getting higher than that will require you to do powerfuls and pinnacles. What these are going to be, and a very easy way to see where they are on your map just directly from this destination screen, is going to be these little yellow star looking things. If you see these connected to multiple of the destinations, let's just check out Vanguard for example. If I open up the Vanguard screen, I'm now going to have even more of the yellow stars, and if I actually hover over any of these specific activities, it will tell me exactly what I need to do and how many of them I need to do for either a pinnacle gear or a powerful gear. In this example, I have to do 3 strikes using the same subclass element as the current active elemental burn, which if you don't know what that is, if I just go here, I can see what the elemental burn is. It is Void Singe, so I'd have to use a Void subclass for 3 strikes to get this pinnacle gear. Or for, let's say, Battlegrounds, I'd get a powerful gear for completing 3 Battleground activities. Again, there's going to be all sorts of powerful and pinnacle loot sources on all of these different planets. There's also some that are a little bit more hidden away. I do have a video that I will link in the description that goes very, very in-depth to leveling, powerful caps, pinnacle caps, soft caps, all the possible different drops you can do. Like I said, I'll link that in the description, but this is the basics for now. For this next section, we are going to be talking about weapons, farming exotic weapons, as well as talking a little bit about catalysts for exotic weapons. Starting with legendary weapons, different activities have activity-specific loot. For example, the 2 legendaries I have on right now, The Last Breath and Dark as Before, are specifically from the Prophecy Dungeon, and can only drop from specific encounters within the Prophecy Dungeon. So if I were to do, let's say, strikes or something, I will never see these weapons. I can only get them specifically from the Prophecy Dungeon. Also note that most legendaries, other than seasonal quest legendaries, such as one like Null Composure here, have random rolls. Null Composure always, every single time you finish the quest for this, is always going to have Fluted Barrel, Projection Fuse, Feeding Frenzy, Reservoir Burst, with additional options of heating up and high impact reserves. It's always going to be exactly the same for a specific weapon such as this one. Another example would be the Salvager's Salvo, but all other legendaries, or 98% of all other legendaries, are going to have random rolls. If you are looking to see what possible rolls you can get in a weapon, there is an outside resource. There's actually multiple outside resources. LightGG, which I'll link on screen and in the description, is going to be a great place to look up perk pools. That's going to be probably much more advanced than most people are looking for in this video, but it's just a resource to look at for maybe a little bit down the line. What I would recommend, though, is a super easy baseline, just starting off, one size fits all-ish type of description, is that you go for some sort of damage perk, such as Rampage, Kill Clip, Vorpal Weapon, One for all sorts of different perks like that, and then some sort of reload enhancement, such as Outlaw, Rapid Hit, Demolitionist, or Autoloading Holster. There's plenty of other great rolls out there as well. You can pretty much never go wrong looking for a combination that has some sort of reload and some sort of damage. Do note that all activities can also drop world loot as well as umbral engrams, which can be used to focus into seasonal specific drops in the helm. Also, the Gunsmith and Xur have a weekly rotation of weapons that they sell each week, which can have some rarely found weapons for your collection. Exotic weapons have a number of different sources. You can potentially get lucky and get an exotic drop just from killing enemies in the world, or from a powerful or pinnacle source. Xur, who's a special NPC that only shows up on the weekends, also sells an exotic weapon every week. Please also note that he sells an exotic engram that contains a new exotic if any of the possible rewards remain to be collected, and you can preview to see which contents are possible to be gotten from Xur. This is not all exotics, but there is a decent amount of exotic weapons, as well as exotic armor, and if you're missing any of these, you are guaranteed to get something you currently do not have. There are a number of exotics that are only acquirable from the kiosk Monumental Lost Lights in the tower, which will require a number of different materials in order to purchase. Note that the exotic Cipher is actually something you can pick up a quest from Xur, who we were just talking about, Glimmer, and planetary materials we'll be talking about later, as well as Ascended Shards. For something that needs Spoils of Conquest, you can only get these from raids. And speaking of raids, there are a few unique exotic weapons that you can only get from either quests or raids. One such example is the Vex Mythoclast, which is from the newest raid, Vault of Glass. This is a rare drop that you can get, potentially, from completing the raid and killing Atheon, and I do raid helps and try to help people get stuff like Vex Mythoclast and or other quest and raid exotics or just loot over at my stream at twitch.tv/DukeIsCool every Monday through Thursday and Saturdays from around 6 o'clock till as late as I can go. Come check it out if you get a chance. Note that unlike legendary weapons, exotic weapons have static rolls, meaning that every, for example, Risk Runner out there will have the exact same rolls. There are two specific outliers to this, Hawkmoon and Deadman's Tale, that actually have random rolls just like legendary weapons. Some exotics have what are called catalysts, which you can find in the catalyst screen. This screen will also show you where you can get them listed on each individual catalyst, and then once you have them, will instead show what you need to do to basically finish leveling them. Usually it's just getting kills of some sort with the weapon. Catalysts will do two things. First, they will make the weapon better in some way. Some catalysts are kind of basic, and then others will make extreme enhancements to the strength of the weapon. For example, for Vex Mythoclast's catalyst, while in full auto mode, your final blows with this weapon will grant bonus damage, accuracy, and stability for a short duration, so you can basically just mow down targets with this. Secondly, they will also masterwork the weapon, which allows for multi-kills with the weapon to create orbs, which can recharge both your super and your teammate's super much faster if you pick them up. Now to talk about materials in Destiny 2. I actually have a 30+ minute guide detailing all you could possibly ever want to know about some of the most important materials in Destiny, which I will link in the description. However, for this video, I'm going to try to condense some of the most important information down into just a couple minutes to start you off on the right foot. Materials are important in order to be able to upgrade your weapons and armor power level through infusion, as well as increase their strength through weapon and armor masterworking. Infusion is the process of taking a lower power piece of gear that you may like to use and using a higher level piece of gear to increase its power level. Also note that you can lock weapons and armor. For controller, at least Xbox controllers, it's clicking in the right stick, and as you can see on screen, I can unlock it by right-clicking the stick again, which allows me to dismantle for infusion. I definitely don't want to do that for a Succession with Reconstruction Vorpal. This is a very, very nice roll for those that aren't aware, but using the lock option for things that you don't want to infuse is a very, very, very helpful tool. Going back to infusion though, in order to infuse, you will need upgrade modules. The main way to get upgrade modules, as well as some other materials you may need, is going to be at the gunsmith in the tower. In order to purchase these upgrade modules, you will need basic materials such as glimmer, legendary shards, enhancement cores, and planetary materials. I go over all of the possible ways to get these materials in the video I just mentioned, but to start you off, just know that legendary shards will be acquired from dismantling legendary and exotic gear, while you can get started on a nice pile of enhancement cores by doing the bounties that Banshee offers each day. Spider on the Tangled Shore is going to be your friend when it comes to acquiring glimmer and planetary materials super fast. You can also do bounties from vendors at each planet in order to get some planetary materials in a pinch. You can also pick them up while exploring around each planet, but I wouldn't recommend going out of your way to do this, as acquiring each of the materials you need when Spider sells them is going to be an infinitely less tedious and quite a bit faster way, but it is an option. As you get a little deeper into the game, you may want to start fully masterworking your armor, which is going to require enhancement prisms and ascendant shards. You can also buy these from Banshee for a pretty hefty price, but note that each vendor in the tower will give you a few of these to get you started as you rank up with them by doing the respective activities. Zavala for strikes, Shax for crucible, Drifter for gambit, as well as Saint 14 for Trials of Osiris. Also make sure to check out the Season Pass, as it does a good job of giving you at least some starting amounts of all of these materials as you rank up to get you started as well. Armor is going to be an important part of your builds as you get just a bit deeper into the game. All of your armor will contribute to your 6 main stats. Mobility, which increases your movement speed and maximum jump height. Resilience, which increases the amount of damage you can take before dying and also lowers the amount of damage you take when breaking out of stasis. Recovery, which increases the speed that you regain lost health. Discipline, which decreases grenade cooldown. Intellect, which decreases super cooldown. And finally Strength, which decreases melee ability cooldown. There are so many possible unique builds and stats to prioritize in this game, but I always recommend as a baseline that it is good to prioritize recovery and intellect stats on your armor. Recovery is great as it will save your life by getting to cover and starting health regen more often than the bit of extra shields resilience gives, while getting more supers through intellect is great as all supers are extremely strong options that can shift the power of any fight in PvE or PvP, so more supers is never bad. Also note that each class's ability cooldown is tied to a stat, with Hunter's dodge cooldown tied to mobility, Titan's barricade tied to resilience, and finally Warlock's rifts to recovery. Therefore, I prioritize each of these stats a bit more on these characters respectively. A lot of armor you get will either have bad stat distribution or low total stats, or maybe even both, but as a general rule of thumb, I like to keep any armor that has 2 stats that each have at least a 20 roll, or 1 stat that has a 25 plus roll. If you don't currently have much to work with as a new or returning player, I'd recommend lowering your requirements just a bit more than that, while giving extra priority to recovery and intellect as mentioned earlier. The vendors at the tower, as well as Devrim on the EDZ, Failsafe on Nessus, and Xur, a special NPC who is around every weekend, sell armor that changes each week and tend to have quite a few solid and easy to access armor rolls. I make videos on some of the best rolls for each class on Tuesday reset for vendors, as well as on Friday's reset for Xur, so make sure to keep an eye out for those. As for exotic armor, these are going to usually enhance your abilities and overall playstyle significantly. Many exotics are subclass specific, One such Warlock-specific example being Phoenix Protocol, returning super energy when getting kills and assists in your Well of Radiance, so obviously you wouldn't want to use that if you weren't using Well of Radiance. But there's also some, such as Lunafaction Boots, which increases your reload speed in Rifts that would be effective across all subclasses. You can get some armor exotics, again from a lucky drop, or powerful pinnacle reward sources, just like weapons. There are, however, some exotic armors that can only be received through doing the Solo Legend and Master Lost Sectors. In order to unlock these, you need to actually come to each Lost Sector in Patrol, do the Lost Sector normally, and then you should, the next time you come out here, see one of these flags. Once you see one of these flags, you can start the Lost Sector. You can see on the flag there, shows what difficulty it is, shows you the champion types, which we will talk about champions near the end of this video, tells you the burn and shields that you may need for the Lost Sector, as well as any potential modifiers. You can also see all of this from the map itself. As you can see, if I hover over K1 Revelation here on the map, I can still see champions, burn, shields, modifiers, as well as my rewards. And it says specifically, if solo, I have a chance to get exotic chest armor. So that's another specific and important thing to think about. Depending on what exotic armor you are looking for, you need to make sure you're doing the right Lost Sector. These rotate every day, the rewards rotate every day. So today on the 1320, the Legend Lost Sector version, you can get exotic chest armors. I don't know which one, could be any of them, that part is random, but I know if I get an exotic, it'll be a chest armor. As you can see, just to be a little bit different here, if I did the 1350 Master version over at K1 Crew Quarters, I would instead have a chance for exotic arms. For example, let's say I wanted legs, a leg exotic armor that I didn't have or wanted a better roll on, I could not do that today through these Lost Sectors. I would have to wait until maybe tomorrow, check the Lost Sectors again. It should be something different. It might be legs, it might be helmet. Also note that you can repurchase any exotics you may have previously dismantled or infused through the Collections tab. However, when it comes to armor, the rolls on the repurchasable collection armor will be very low, so I'd recommend keeping at least one roll of exotic armor that you get in your vault, or under character. As I haven't mentioned the vault yet, it's a storage area that will persist across all of your characters. The vault has up to 500 spaces and can hold most things that you earn in the game: armor, weapons, and many, but not all materials. Some are only able to be held in your inventory. Finally, but certainly not least, we have armor and weapon mods. This topic is going to be slightly more advanced than most of the rest of this video, but is nonetheless a very important topic to think about as you are playing. All legendary weapons have what is called a weapon mod slot. You can use this slot to amplify your weapon in some way, such as increasing the magazine or increasing damage against a certain type of enemy. There are quite a few different mods, but the three I find myself using the most are Backup Mag, which increase your magazine size, Major Spec, which increases your damage against majors, basically orange and yellow bar enemies, as well as champions, which we will touch on in a second, and Boss Spec, which increases your damage against bosses and vehicles. Armor also has mod slots, with unique mods for each armor slot, such as ammo finders only appearing on the helmet slots, as well as unique mods across armor affinity types. Armor affinity can get very confusing, especially for a newer or returning player, so my recommendation is to start with the first armor slot on each armor piece, the general armor mod slot, to increase your overall armor stats. From there, I would focus on ammo finders on your helmet, along with scavenger mods on your boots, in order to get more ammo for the weapons you are using. You may not have many of these mods unlocked if you are just starting the game, but when getting legendary engrams throughout the world, either as drops or vendor unlocks, you will see more and more of these mods unlock for your use. One specific thing I want to mention that I see so many players struggle with are champions and champion-specific mods. Champions have been added into various activities in the game and require specific mods and specific weapons to deal with them effectively. At the start of each season, you will get a new artifact, the Wayfinder's Compass for this season, which comes with a series of seasonal mods. The mods I want to show off here are the Barrier, Overload, and Unstoppable specific mods, as these are the mods you will need to unlock to deal with champions. For example, Anti-Barrier Auto Rifle is an unlockable mod option this season, so what I would need to do is to unlock the mod, Make sure I have the mod equipped on my gloves here. This is a very important step that many players either forget or in some cases just aren't aware of, and then make sure I have an auto rifle equipped. Then, whenever I run into any type of barrier champion and it puts its shield up, I will be able to use my auto rifle to break that shield and stun the champion. Do note that for Unstoppable specifically, you will need to aim down sights for a short time before shooting the champion in order to stun it. Also, champions have a few seconds of being immune to their stun after they break free from it, so if you try to stun a champion back to back, you may notice that it is not effective. Just look for the wings on the champion to note when you will be able to stun the champion again. I have multiple videos that go even deeper into the mod system, as well as this season's artifact mods, so make sure to check out the description below if you're looking for an even more advanced dive into any of these topics. That's all for my ultimate guide for new and returning players. If you have any specific questions that I didn't cover, make sure to leave them in the description below, and if there's interest, I could make a monthly guide series of sorts where I answer your questions. I hope this guide helped many fellow Guardians out there, and as always, thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day.